We had that professional day, that teacher day the other day, and they were talking about, you don't know what's going on in your students' lives, so they might show up one day all grumpy, and you're just thinking, I got to teach them this math or this science or whatever, without really knowing what's going on with them personally. I think something that our teachers didn't know is a lot of times we lived. There were 6 of us. There's 4 of us kids and my parents. Sometimes a dog, sometimes 2. We basically lived in one-room hotels for like 2 or 3 months at a time. Sometimes outside if it was nice. My dad had the camper set up with he put plywood across to make beds, and then had like a little section with a kitchen, like one of those green Coleman things. That was our kitchen, and we would just, because he did like ranch and farm work. So a lot of times the ranchers and farmers would let the crews stay there. So, that's what we'd do, and somebody would drive the kids from the camp to the school. I was looking at Facebook and just kind of putting people's names that are people that I knew years ago, just wondering where they are now. And I remember there's this one kid this was in a town in South Dakota. We all lived in a hotel room with 2 beds, all 6 of us. And it was him and his parents, and they had a humongous house. And I always liked going over there because there was all this room, and he had all the coolest toys. And plus, I couldn't say, you want to come over to my place? Because it's like, what are we going to do, hang out with the whole family in the middle of the hotel room? I know what made me think of it is I went over there once. It was before Christmas, and he was upset with his mom because he wanted a certain toy, and she said, I can't, that's too expensive. And I'm thinking, man, I'll take any freaking toy. I'll take that damn thing you got sitting there. And, and he's living in this house with all this room. I mean, it's only the 3 of them. I think the house had like 4 bedrooms. And, we're all crammed over there. And he's freaking out about that he's not going to get this certain toy for Christmas. And I didn't understand that. It was my 6th grade year. Was probably the best example because I think I went to 6 schools that year. I know there's 2 or 3 in Texas, 1 or 2 here in Colorado, 1 in South Dakota, and 1 in Nebraska, I think. And because it takes me back to that. It takes me back to that, if I did a really good job on something and I handed it in, the teacher's like, oh, look at this. Look how great. I'm going to, like you said in class, I'm going to post it up here and look, so everybody can see this is how you should do it. And what made it double bad for us was it's like, okay, first of all, we're the cool kids that are made to look smart. Second of all, it's like, here's all these migrant kids making the locals look bad. So it's like that was even worse. It's like you don't want to make the white kids look bad because it's like that's supposed to be their thing, and here's these guys that can't even speak English, some of them, and their work's getting pointed out. So that made it even more taboo. So a lot of it, but just for me, anyways, there was a lot of I don't want to be that guy, And I never thought to tell the teacher, can we keep it cool and I'll continue doing good work. I just shut down. Like my cousin and one of his friends, we were all in that migrant group. He ended up being a doctor. Both of them ended up being doctors, and I didn't find out till like when we were seniors. Somehow he left these awards in his car, and I'm like, what are these? And he had like these science awards and all these math awards, and I started giving him crap because I'm like, I didn't know this about you, dude. Like, we weren't supposed to, like, our crew wasn't supposed to be smart. So and then I would hope not to get picked on, like when there was a question asked, and if there was, I remember a couple of times actually knowing it and saying the wrong thing on purpose, because I didn't want to, in my mind, I'm like, I have to purposely say the wrong damn thing. And especially if there's one of my buddies sitting next to me or behind me, because I'd look at them or feel them behind me. And I know they felt the same way when one of us was near them or behind them, because you could tell some of them would get really nervous. They'd start like doing this and like, oh, I hope they don't call me, and if they do, what am I going to do? Oh yeah, I mean, that's what I was saying, that this class I just started today about math, they asked, what our experience with math was, and I told the professor, I go, I mentioned it in another class too. I've had a lifelong aversion to math because I had one teacher tell me I couldn't figure out how to do, I think it must have been algebra or something. Mm-hmm. And I was trying to ask her, I went up to her desk asking her to help me figure it out, and she kind of blew me off by saying, your kind doesn't need to know this stuff because the kind of work you'll do when you get out of school, you won't need this. Like basically saying, since you're Mexican, you're going to go do some labor thing and you'll never use math, so don't worry about it. And because we were migrants, I went to another school that same year, and almost instantly I brought that grade up to like a 95. Because that teacher, I was afraid to, but I did it anyways. I went up to his desk and said, I don't understand this. And he was very cool about it. And he was like, here's how you do it. Showed me some tricks, and all of a sudden it's like, there's how. But he was the only one. Like, we kept going back to that other school, and it had like 2 or 3 teachers that were like that, had attitudes. You know, that, I guess you would call it the white privilege. Like they felt like their privilege didn't apply to us, like like migrants or Latinos, Mexicans, whatever. We didn't need to learn those things because we're not going to use them. So it's like they looked at it as that's their privilege. They're going to keep it for their kids, their kind. Because I saw them helping the other kids. As soon as I walk away, it's like, oh yeah, you do it like this. And that's how I kind of learned, because I'm like, I would kind of sit there and eavesdrop at the edge of the desk, but I never had direct, like, here's how you do it, until that one teacher. And I can't, to this day, I'm like, math makes me sick. And God, I didn't know what to think about it, because I knew the stuff, and I knew I would be better off if I just did it right. But it didn't have as much, what do you call it? It didn't carry as much weight as what my friends would do, or what the locals, I call them locals because we moved around a lot, what the locals would do when we made them look bad. And ultimately, all this built up to me dropping out in the 10th grade. I had. When I think about it, I think about how crazy it was, because there was only like a month or two. It was about this time of year, about April. I only had like a month or 2 left in my 10th grade year, and I'm like, that's it. I know it because I've done it, and I actually, one of my hobbies is building speakers. And you do a lot of math to figure out the volume and the ports, and how the actual speaker will react to the box that it's in, and all that sort of stuff. That's a ton of math, and it's not easy. Yet I can do that. And I kind of self-taught myself that from what I do remember, and then just from looking it up. But I think about how I could have done, because I originally wanted to be an electrical engineer, and it's all math. And that's how I ended up in the TV business, because but I did it the operator kind of way, just operating equipment. And I taught myself how to repair things and all that. So I kind of think, like, if I had been approached differently with math, maybe I would have invented something for TV instead of just operating it. So I need to be challenged. I get bored real easy. I figure things out pretty quick. I tend to, like, one of my big peeves is how long it takes to do things. Like I'll sit there and say it does not take that long to do these things, whatever it may be. I always truly believe things can be done in half the time that they are, sometimes even a fourth of the time. And it drives me nuts when things are dragged out. I guess that person would need to know quite a bit about me, first of all. That's why I mentioned earlier the right teacher would find a way to get that out. And like I said, me personally, I don't mind saying anything, as long, but a lot of times I need to be poked. I'm not going to offer anything, and I'll admit that straight out. I don't offer anything to anybody. I really have to be asked. And I noticed that just in taking classes here at the university, until a group thing. That's why I like the group things, because you kind of get forced, and then that it's like that works for me, because then I'm forced to say stuff. And I think it goes back to that, those teachers, that didn't ask those things. Because back then when I was a little kid, I wanted to. I'm like, I want to talk about me. And nobody wanted to know. They didn't ask, so then I won't tell you. So it's like it's just been this lifelong process of shutting down.